All right. Thank you, Reed. And of course, I want to give a shout out to all you participants there at the Pavillon Treatment Center. I am an alcoholic. My name is Kip, and my last name's Harris. I don't mind telling you that. If you ever need to find me, I'm easy to find. If you just Google me, you might see my mugshot first, but go to the next one and click on that, and you'll find my information. That's pretty funny, right? Again, I'm a grateful alcoholic. And also want to thank you, Reed, for filling in. I understand you're filling in for Ashton, and I just want to thank her for asking me once again. This has been honor and a pleasure and a privilege. This is my second time speaking here, but it's been a while, so I'm grateful to be able to come back. And Ashton's also, there's three of previous speakers that are here tonight that Ashton asked me to get, Mary, Andrea, and Suze. So I'm grateful to see them back here in support of this treatment facility. I'm a firm believer in treatment. I do. I went through treatment myself and then went on from there, and I'll explain some of it go along. Before we get started, I always like to have a little bit of humor. I got a little bit more time tonight than normal. Sometimes he gave me 30 minutes or so. So here we go. There's a guy that's riding down the road with his wife in the car. They're just cruising along. Police pulls him over, and the police comes up to the door and asks him to roll his window down. And he says, "Sir, did you know that you had a taillight busted out?" And the guy said, "No, I did not, but I promise you I will fix it first thing in the morning." His wife said, "I told you 3 weeks ago you need to fix that taillight." And the guy says to his wife, "Be quiet. I'm just here. I'm just trying to talk to the police. Don't say nothing." And then the police officer asked the man, said, "Look, sir, can I see your driver's license?" Of course, he hands him his driver's license, and the police looks at his driver's license and come to find out it's expired. And he tells the man, says, "Sir, did you know that your driver's license was expired?" And the man said, "No, I sure didn't. And I'll tell you what, tomorrow, first thing, I will make sure I go to the DMV and get that renewed." And the wife said, "I told you, you got a letter in the mail 3 months ago to get that license. I told you to do that." And the husband's beginning to cuss her now a little bit. "You suck the blankety blank up. You need to be quiet," and getting hostile with her, real angry, upset with her. And the police notices this. And then the police looks over at the woman and says, "Ma'am, does your husband always talk to you like that?" And she said, "No, only when he's been drinking." So, look, anyway, I think it's funny. Well, my buddy Gordon he always tells that joke before he gets up and speaks. He's got like 47 years of sobriety, and he's just so funny. He does a lot better job with it than I do. But anyway, again, I'm a grateful alcoholic named Kip. Like Reed said, I'll do best to tell you in a general way what it was like, what happened, and what it's like today. I'll start off from the beginning. Yes, I was born and raised here in Greensboro, North Carolina, where I'm from. That's where I met Ashton. First got sober. And she was part of our home group, and then moved, of course, to where you all are now. I'm going to start, my life. I grew up in a good Christian home, guys. I mean, I'm in church when the doors open. I mean, my dad was a deacon in church. My mom was a Sunday school teacher, and they kept me in church as much as possible. I mean, Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, without question. And then if they had any other services going on, of course, they would have us there, whether it be vacation Bible study or revivals, stuff like that. I was in an independent Baptist, King James Version, Bible believing, old fashioned type church. Anyway, and we were just there. And then, I had a good faith and trust in God at an early age. I really did. And what we Christians call being saved. I got saved at 5 years old. I remember it clear as day, and a lot of people may agree or disagree with me on that, but that's what happened. That was my experience. And I got baptized at 12 in a lake, with my mother, and then my mother got diagnosed with cancer when I was 14, and made it a little while before she ended up passing. Now I love my mother. I was the youngest of three, so I was the baby of the family. So I got a lot of attention, and we didn't grow up. We didn't have a lot. I remember that, I always got the Kmart brand where my friends were getting the Levi's and the Lacoste's. I was getting the Tracks and the Tough Skins. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Sears brand too. So anyway, I just remember I didn't wear the same clothes some of the other well-to-do, but I have some other people that I was more on the same level. I grew up in a mobile home park, and for 20 years I was there. But again, here's what's going to set the stage to my drinking is my great excuse is what I'd call. And then, of course, I'm going to sit here and tell you, I've always been told to be stronger than your excuses. That's one of my go-tos today, is to be stronger than my excuses. But this is my great excuse. My mother passed. Like I said, I grew up I had good faith. I believed God was going to touch her. She'd been sick before. She got well. She gets sick, get well. Well, this time she didn't. This was my thinking. I didn't understand what cancer was, but even though they told me, she had cancer, I had no clue that she had a short time to live. I didn't understand it. My dad would tell me, and my big brother would tell me, he's 6 years older, that your mama ain't going to live much longer. You need to go visit her. And at 14 years old, 2 weeks before she passed, was the last time I seen her. And the reason I talk about this more so than a lot of my drinking is because the guilt and shame that I had behind not being there for my mother when I did start drinking for a period of time. Don't get me wrong. At first, drinking was fun. I enjoyed it. It was party, but it became a necessity to cover up a lot of my guilt and shame. And I was 2 weeks before she died. The last time I seen her, she said, "Kip, come give me a hug, give me a kiss, goodbye." Walked right out the room like I didn't hear her, and didn't go back until I found out my dad, the sheriff department came to our house to inform my dad at 3 o'clock in the morning my mom had passed just before that. And, I was hurt, but I just didn't understand it. I still couldn't grasp it. I didn't know how to feel. Nobody, and I'm not saying this to blame anybody or push. Nobody knew how to, or if they didn't know how, they didn't come to me and help me work through my grief at 14 years old. I didn't have it. But around that age is when I began to drink, and I had dibbled and dabbled a little bit before my mom had passed. But then when I got to high school, I began to drink and do outside issues. I managed to graduate from high school with all A's and B's, believe it or not. I didn't want to go no further than that. I didn't want to go to college. So I took carpentry in high school for 3 years. So I went straight to that. And I was making pretty good money doing that. But my dad got remarried about a year after my mom passed away. He started to date this woman probably 6 months after she passed. And 6 months later, they were married. And whoa, I got a resentment. So now let's put this into play here. Is I got a resentment towards God. I've got a resentment now towards my dad. And of course, I didn't like this woman that's coming in to our lives. I'm getting ready to be, I'm 15 when they get married. And I was a young 15. I'm going to be honest with you. I was a late bloomer, so to speak. I actually graduated high school a year earlier than most people did because my birthday was right there on the line. So I graduated high school at 17. But anyway, I was the youngest in my class. Let's just say that. One of the youngest. There's a handful of us that were there. But anyway, long story short, I didn't like her. And guys, I'm going to be honest with you. I was so conditioned with resentments. I didn't understand what it was. I didn't understand the fear. I didn't understand any of this stuff. I had no notion or no clue as to how I was feeling because I did a lot. I ain't gonna lie. We're in a treatment center setting. Guys, I smoked a lot of weed. I ain't gonna lie. I smoked a lot of weed. if we were in an actual AA meeting, I probably wouldn't bring this up, but since we're in an AA treatment center setting, I feel like I could share a little bit of that. And I smoked weed every day. And then I got to drinking when I got out of high school. And then I found that my real true love, cocaine, that helped me drink even more. So I'm just going to leave it at that, get it back on track with this drinking things. But it always started with drinking and it always ended with drinking. And I lived to drink and drink to live. Of course, it was progressive. I come to a crossroads in my life about 19 years old where, this drinking and partying and all this is getting in the way of my working. Because I don't know about y'all, but when I drink and stay up all night, I'm not much count for going to work the next day. So some days I would make it. I ain't gonna lie. I mean, I pushed through it. I'd stay up, man, and I'd say, I ain't never doing that again. And I made it through it. And I do it again the next time, and I do it again. I'm like, this is not working. And so I made a decision that I would just quit working. The only problem with quitting working, guys, when you like to drink and do outside issues like I do, is it takes money. Now, I was pretty much codependent with my dad at 17, 18 years old because he would take care of the bills. I was able to buy me a car straight out from 16, and mainly because my mother had passed and left some money with Social Security. That's how I got some money from till I was 18, from 14 to 18, saved that. My dad gave that to me. He wasn't supposed to, but he did. He didn't have to, but he did. Let's just say it. And I had me a vehicle, right the day I turned 16, I had my vehicle already before. But anyway, long short, as time progresses, me and my brother have this mobile home. My dad and stepmom moved about 100 yards away from us, gave us that mobile home, and he took care of the bills. And anyway, we began to have Party Central at my house, and it progressed. And when I quit working, guys, I didn't quit using or doing drugs or drinking, rather. I began to steal. I thought I was invisible. I thought, I felt entitled. I was like, and plus I'm gonna be honest with you, straight as to the core, as doing a 4-step. What do we mean by doing a 4-step? If you're new, made a searching and fearless moral inventory. When I looked at my life there, I had zero control whether I could or could not do just. I could not do it. I had no choice. I had lost all my passion for work. I had zero goals. I had no goals whatsoever, except for one main one. How can I get more to make me feel different? I had been in the grip of this alcoholism so strong that I could not stop. So I resorted to stealing, shoplifting. I didn't care much for breaking in a house. I mean, I got caught doing that once or twice, breaking into somebody's house when they wasn't home. I made sure they wasn't home, and I'd go in and steal some stuff. But I wasn't real comfortable with that. Like, man, if somebody comes in, saying I'm going to get shot. Shoplifting, however, I kind of could justify that because, this is a store. I just go in and grab what I need, tuck it in my shorts or shirt or pants or jacket, and walk out. And I did that for a long time, guys. And I'd get caught. They'd get me at the door. And I found out, there's a lot you learn about the law when you're breaking the law, is that if you steal over $300 worth of merchandise, then it becomes a felony. So from where I'm from anyway. So that happened on more occasions than I can count. And I ended up going in and out of prison, in and out of jail. The big book talks about a vicious cycle that we go through is not necessarily, with the drinking, that's what it is. It's a vicious cycle. I always say, I'm not going to do this no more. And I go right back at it. I'd say, well, as soon as I start feeling better, I'm right back at it. I went to prison. I'd swear up and down, I'm not doing that no more. I have learned my lesson. Well, I have no replacement. The big book, Alcoholics Anonymous, says, do you have a sufficient substitute? And then it says, yes. And it's vastly more than that. It's a fellowship in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I didn't understand that there was a substitute for alcoholism. And really what entails in that fellowship is the 12 steps as well, the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, which gets me to, like Reed said, to the God of my understanding, where I no longer have the need to have replaced drugs and alcohol as my higher power to making God higher power. And the process of the 12 steps led me to a God of my understanding today, where I've got a relationship where I just don't have no desire to drink. My life is good today. I enjoy my life today without a drink. And we're going to get into that too some more. But anyway, in and out of prison, I'm going to fast forward. 2005, they gave me 2 habitual criminal charges. If you don't know what that is, that means you've been caught multiple times, over 3 times. It's the three strike rule, and you're out. They gave me 2 habitual criminal charges. And mine was the lowest you could get on the totem pole, because I never had any violent crimes or anything like that, just stealing primarily as a whole, which doesn't make it any less than anything else. I'm just saying that's my experience. And they gave me 2 habitual criminal charges, which carry 80 to 105 months each in 2005. And that means in prison, locked up, North Carolina State Penitentiary, 80 to 105 months times 2. And if you do the math, that's like anywhere from 9, let's just say 9 years is a good round number, times 2, 8 to 9 years. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going away forever. Well, they gave me a plea bargain. Long story short, I did 4 years from 2005 to 2009. I got out. I went through the program, dark program. I did everything program wise so I could get the heck out of there. I really had a mind that I was not going to do that stuff no more when I got out. Lo and behold, I went to AA meetings, guys. I promise you, I went to AA meetings while I was in there. Didn't work didn't work any steps. I thought my thinking is so skewed. I thought, well, if I got in the middle of Alcoholics Anonymous, so to speak, when I say the middle, I mean just going to meetings. I'm not talking about working the steps. Now, I know that truly being in the middle is being not only in the meeting, but working the steps and doing service work. Now, I did the service work, and I'd go to meetings and have a little bit of fellowship, but I didn't work no steps. I tried to work the 4th step, and I took it to one of the counselors there and was going to do a 5th step, and he just said, "You ain't ready." Because I didn't have nothing but like 1 page. I was like, I don't have no. I felt like I had been, I didn't understand, and I just didn't get it. I wasn't ready. Just simple. Looking back, I know today I just wasn't ready. So I didn't have a program when I got out. I did good. I went to church. Like I said, I was raised in church. I thought that was going to say, that's where I had a lot of content prior to investigation. I was like, if I can't get it right in church, where I was born and raised, where I always heard that if you give it to the Lord, he'll fix it and all this. And I get that. And he will. And he did. He was trying his best, my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, trying his best to push me towards you in 1989. I got sober in 2010, guys. In 2009, when I got out, I went to church. God, already know today, looking back, they always say life's lived forward and understood backwards. I get it today. I needed Alcoholics Anonymous. God was trying to get me to you guys all along. I just couldn't see it. I had content prior to investigation. That was my problem. I'm like, AA ain't going to work for me. No way possible. Well, I get out, I relapse, if you want to call it that. I don't really call it a relapse, but you know what I mean when I speak of that. I had been dry for 4 years in prison, and I get out. I do good. I start my business. I get everything going back together. It's pretty good in my carpentry field and blah, blah, blah. This thought still comes to my mind today, guys. The only difference is this thought back then versus now is I'm in the middle of AA and I've worked the steps and I continue to work the steps. This thought came to my mind. You can just get 1 12-pack, Kip. You ain't drank in 5 years almost. You'll be okay. And that's a lie from the pits of hell. I'm not going to be okay. Matter of fact, when I drank that, I like to get some stuff that helps me drink more. And I went to the budget motel headed to my dad's house. Well, I was headed to my dad's house. The thought came to mind. It got late. I used the rationalization and justification, that form of denial that we all use. I'm just going to go over to the hotel because it's getting late. I shouldn't bother my dad this late. And then tomorrow I'll get up and go see him, because I hadn't seen him in like 5 years. I'd been out of prison for a few months. And that thought came to me on the way there. I can do just one 12-pack. I just get one 12-pack. I'll be okay. And of course, I got to get a little something to go with it. I like how Holly D puts it. She says condiments, like salt and pepper to make your beer a little bit better. Well, mine was cocaine. I like to get cocaine, crack, or whatever to make my beer and alcohol a little better. And that's what I did. And then 3 weeks later, guys, I had about $10,000 saved up, and I was there for 3 weeks at that budget hotel. And I spent every penny I had. I had unwoke that sleeping tiger that we talk about in here. He was fierce, just like he was, or more so than ever before. And I had burned my life to the ground once again. And then I call my dad, give him this sad story of how life's not treating me fair. I'm a convicted felon. I can't get, I had jobs, guys. I had jobs out to yin yang. Everybody was hiring me. So I just used the excuse. I'd tell my dad these little lies and he'd believe it. And he said, well, come here and stay with me till you can get yourself together. He didn't know. He probably knew, but he didn't know that I was back at it again. And, because he knew I'd been in prison for 4 years. Anyway, long story short, he left to go on vacation to go see my niece get married. They wanted me to come, but I didn't go, or invited, whatever reason, I didn't go. And when he came back a week later, and I'm not proud of this, and just before, if I don't get to this, I just want you to know that I did make amends to my dad. Me and him were on perfect as you could be on son and father relationship after I worked step 9 with him to the fullest by paying him back every penny. But I stole everything he had, including his truck. He called the police like he should, had them pick me up at the liquor house on July the 7th, 2010. Just like I said, the July the 8th, 2010 is my sobriety date. And by the way, I got a sponsor today and I sponsor people. And anyway, on that day, when they gave me them 4 felonies, now remember, I got 2 habituals dropped. Ain't no way, I already knew. I mean, it's just like, if I go do this again today, guys, I'm done. I'm surprised, thank God for God's grace. I really don't know. I don't know that I've spent God's grace, but I'm not going to chance it. I'm not going to go out here and drink no more just for today. I've made up my mind. Again, I got 12 years of sobriety, and I don't want to lose it. I don't want to lose the spirit that God dwells within me today. It took a long time to get where I am today. Well, on July the 8th, 2010, they locked me up on a $50,000 bond. I got 4 felonies: possession, stolen property, obtaining property by false pretense. By the way, if you pawn something that don't belong to you, that's a felony. I don't care if it's worth $20, $100, or $50 or $1,000. That is a felony automatically. I didn't know. I didn't care. I always tell myself when I pawn something with my dad, I'd go back and get it before he come back, and then I'd put it back and he'd never know that I got it. But that never happened. Never happened. And anyway, he showed them where I was, basically I would be, and that's where I was. And they locked me up, $50,000 bond. I'm thinking this is in my mind, and I believe it to be true, and I should have got it, 12 years minimum. There ain't no question I should have got that much time. I already knew, and I already accepted. It took me about a week to shake the cobwebs off after sleeping it off of the drinking and running that I had been doing the last 6 months after going to prison for 4 years, being sober for about 6 months, and then another 6 months of ripping and running. And I was supposed to get it all. But anyway, I was in there about a month or so, and they said, there's somebody downstairs that wants to see you. And I'm thinking they're going to give me some more charges, or it's a public defender or somebody I'm going to go see. And lo and behold, it's Jeff Bennett from the drug court program, drug and alcohol court that they have there in Guilford County. Now, we got 2 jails and two courthouses, one in High Point and one in Greensboro. Well, one in Greensboro didn't have what we call Caring Services, which is where I went for my, what I would call treatment process. They said, you're not staying in Greensboro. Anyway, first he asked me, he said, Kip, you won't, of course, I won't say anything that I can to get out. He said, Kip, do you think you have a problem with drugs and alcohol? I said, yes, I do. Would you like some help? Now, granted, I'm supposed to go to prison. They ain't supposed to be offering me this. He said, I don't know how your name got on my desk. I'll never understand it. I'm just here because your name's on my desk, and it's my job to offer this to you. If you want to do what we ask you to do for 1 year, we will dismiss these charges. Now, you talking about God's grace that shined down on me. I had never, ever experienced God's grace more than I did when that man asked me those words. And of course, I didn't know if I wanted what you had when I came, but I was like at my wit's end. I was 40 years old. I was at the jumping off place. I didn't have no money. I didn't have no clothes. I didn't have nothing. I mean, I was at the end. And I was like, yes, I want to do this. And I didn't think I meant it. I just was basically was saying whatever I could say to get out of that jail. So I could, he said, you're not staying in Greensboro. We got a guy named Jason Yates, which is the head coordinator at Caring Services in High Point. And he said, he's going to pick you up. And when he picks you up, he's going to take you by your dad's and pick up that little black trash bag full of junk clothes, basically. Well, I'm adding those to, because that's what it was. Pick up your clothes. And my dad put it on the side of the car because he didn't want to see me. He was done with me. He at least did that so I'd have a little something going over to Caring Services. Didn't have no money, no nothing. I was at the jumping off point, basically. But when I got there, they got me set up with food stamps. I was on food stamps, y'all. They gave me $200 a month food stamps. And how I got that, I don't know. I got it in 2010. And then they got me set up where I was going to be staying. There was 13 men in this house. There was 3 people, and I was one of the 3 in the room, and they had multiple rooms. This is a great big giant house. And then we would leave that house and go to Caring Services and do our IOP, what they call intensive outpatient. I had to go to a meeting every single day. And so I had to pick the 7:30 a.m. morning meeting because they had me busy all day from 9 to like 2 in IOP. And then I had 2 to the rest of the, I had a curfew at 7 p.m. I had to be in my room at the house by 7 o'clock at night for 6 months. It's intensive intensive probation. So even then, guys, there was a part of me that wanted to leave there and go get me a drink. That's how cunning, baffling, and powerful I'm facing all this time. I don't know how bad things would have got or could get. I couldn't see it. But fortunately, God's grace, and that's why I say, Kip didn't have nothing to do with this 12 years. I promise you, God's grace and mercy, he has the one that done this. I didn't do any of it. None, zero. He's done it all. I'm just grateful that he gave me enough, what we call the how of it, the honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. He's the one that gave me that willingness. So now here I am going to that meeting. I wouldn't say I was an alcoholic. Now I've only had one standing ovation in my whole life. And 2 months at the meeting, every day going to it, I just say, I'm just blessed to be here. My name's Kip. When they go around and introduce themselves, I wouldn't say I'm an alcoholic because I grew up a Christian. Now we don't say nothing negative, what I thought was negative. Today, I know it's not a negative, but then it was a negative to me. So I wasn't going to say it. Well, I finally went to my pastor about it, and he said, if everybody would say I'm a sinner and I'm such and such, then we'd all be on the same level, no big I's and little U's. And I was like, I was saying I'm alcoholic. Then I read in the big book for years, I was sure that the worst thing that could happen to me was to be an alcoholic. Today, I found it's the best thing that ever happened to me. Today, being an alcoholic is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. I'm in recovery. And I found out that the disease of alcoholism is the only disease on the planet that, if treated, leaves the sufferer in better condition than if they'd ever had it. That's been my experience. I'm better for having it. I'm better for being an alcoholic. That's just the way it is. I mean, that's just what I believe because that's my experience. And I can't tell you anything medically and all that. I can just tell you my experience, and that's what's happened to me. I got there. I finally said I was an alcoholic, and everybody in the place stood up and said, "We're glad you finally figured out that you an alcoholic. Welcome." It took me 2 months. I mean, I was chairing meetings and doing all this stuff. Nobody really pressured me too much about it. But when I was ready, I said it. And you talking about getting free. I got free. And by this time, I had done work the first 3 steps. I just wouldn't say I was alcoholic. Then I got with my sponsor. I wrote down, I finally figured out, when I was ready, I was able to do some investigating and learn how to do the 4th step with them columns, working resentments, fear, sex conduct, all that. I did all that. And then I shared it with my sponsor. And then the step 5 promises came true for me. And then I began to work 6 and 7, 8, 9, and 10. Free, guys. I got free. Within that first year, I had worked all the steps outlined in that big book with my sponsor. And then I started back with one with another. And that's where the real freedom for this alcoholic began to happen. I got free when I began to do these things. And then, I didn't have to work it to perfection because I just didn't know. And as I go on, I began to learn these things. Now, I did a 4th step, my hat's off to you if you do more than that. This is what me and my sponsor came up with. We did a 4th step. Now I work in step 10. I continue to take personal inventory every day. If something that I need to would go on my 4th step, I'll write it out, share it with him, and look to someone I can help. I don't go redo a whole 4th step. I mean, that's my interpretation. There's no sense in me paying last month's Duke Power bill when I've already paid it. I don't have to pay that again. I don't have to go back since I've already made amends to my dad for the $10,000. I don't have to go pay him $10,000 again. I just don't. I've already paid it. So I don't have to go back and redo that. Now, if there's other things that crop up that come to me, that's my 10th step from continuing to take personal inventory, which the steps for me are all intertwined, all 12 steps. If you want to call it a 4th step, if you want to call it a 5th step, so be it. But for me, I've worked the 4th step, and I don't go rewrite a 4th step again. I've already wrote it, and I've already discussed it with my sponsor. And if I bring it, something comes to my mind that I did when I was, 15, 16 years old, of course, I'll discuss it with my sponsor and just get it off of me right then and there. But that very rarely happens because I did a thorough 4th step, and I got free. There's some things I don't, but anyway, that's enough of that. And I got free. And then while I only got a few more minutes here because I want to leave some time for sharing. I began to work these steps, and my life began to change. Those promises, those 10th step promises came true. And then I'm a firm believer that I'm recovered. A lot of people don't believe that. That's their business. The big book talks about it being recovered 25 times. So I'm recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind. Now, I'm not a ham. I can't be cured. I have to stay in the middle of Alcoholics Anonymous, no question. I don't want to lose if I think I got this thing, then I'll quit coming to AA, and then I'm gonna relapse. I know that about me, but I'm not gonna quit. I'm gonna keep coming every single day. Now, I can tell you when I sought the spiritual, big book, the 12 and 12 talks about this. When I sought the spiritual, material took care of itself. Like I said, I didn't have 2 nickels to rub together. My sponsor said there ain't but one thing you need to change, and that's everything. I got a position at a car lot on the same day I got my driver's license. And the reason why I applied for that job is so I could get a car to drive. That's the only motive, because I didn't have no money. I'm talking about zero. I had no money, none. I didn't have a bank account. I didn't have no, matter of fact, I owed a lot of money. And my sponsor said, well, I was like, well, I manipulated, and I had my motives. I promise you, my motive was, if I can get this car lot job, I'll have something to drive. And I ain't drove legally in 20 years. I got my license back same day I got my license back, I interviewed for the car lot manager position. They hired me on the spot, gave me all the keys, all the cars, all the titles. And they said, here, I need you to drive every one of these cars. Don't just drive one. I want you to drive every one of them every day, drive a different car because they need to be driven. We want you to keep them, cars meant to drive. So I got it. And I began to drive those cars, and I began to sell those cars, and I began to make a little bit of money. And it wasn't long. I made enough money to buy me a car to sell there. They let me sell some cars there, and it wasn't long in 2015. I got sober in 2010, 2015, I started my own business. 2016, I bought a property that belongs to me. And 2 years later, I paid it all the way off. Don't owe any money on it. And I've got like 100 in there. Now, hey, look, I don't need no attaboys. This is something I should have been doing all along, taking care of my business, but I couldn't do it. Alcohol and outside issues wouldn't let me do any of that. One of the things that happened to me is my high school sweetheart came back to me. We dated for 3 years. We got married, got divorced 7 years later, and here I am single at my house by myself, and I didn't drink. I tried everything under the sun to save that marriage. And like I say, and I'll tell you in my story, it wasn't her fault. It was my fault. Things just didn't work out. I tried to go through counseling. I doubled down on my meetings a little bit to try to get a little bit of clarity, blah, blah, blah. Long story short, we just decided we'd part ways. And so I was able to stay sober through it. One of the most dramatic things, and I'm going to share this, my dad in 2020 had a massive stroke. And this is something that I really cherish to the umpteenth degree. And he was in the hospital. And my brothers, my aunts, my uncles, everybody, it was during COVID, only one person can go. So we picked me to go up there. I had my own business, so I had enough time on my hands where I could take time off to go up there. And they said, Kip, you're the most responsible person we have in this family. And we want you to go up there and report back to us what's going on with Dad. Dad made it 10 days, passed away. And when he died, I was there. I was there with him. Matter of fact, let's just say I went every day. He died in the middle of the night, but as soon as I found out, I was up there. Matter of fact, I was in this Zoom meeting that I started, aazoomaholic.com. You ever need a meeting in the morning, 8 o'clock, you just come over there. aazoomaholic.com. I was in the middle of that meeting when my brother got the phone call. My dad had passed. And I went and I was able, because I'm a son now, I'm able to perform son duties. I went over there, and of course, you don't get the insurance money yet. So I took my own money, paid for his funeral, and was able to preach I'm a minister too. I was able to preach his eulogy, and I was able to bury him beside my mama. And I took the very last service they had at that church before they sold it, because COVID, whatever. Anyway, they were able to, the same day it was sold, my dad's Michael, one of y'all know Michael, he helped me get that church sold for for the members of that church. Anyway, the very last service was my dad's service, and anyway, I was there. And by the way, I was able to make my amends through my dad. And on my 9th anniversary, my dad came to my anniversary. He was there every year. He didn't understand AA. He didn't understand any of it because he's Christian. He just don't know. And he got up when they asked for announcements, says, I just want to thank each and every one of you of Alcoholics Anonymous for giving me my son back. Whatever it is y'all doing, just keep doing it. And that was 9th year anniversary. And he came to my 10, and of course, he wasn't there 11 and 12 because he had passed in 20. But anyway, I'm just so grateful that I was able to do that with my dad, since I couldn't do it with my mom. And that was kind of a way of making a living amends, if you ask me, to be there for my dad. And then during that time, I've been able to buy this house that I live in. And I had 14 people that trust me enough. My family members came here and stayed with me during my dad's process of getting buried and all that. And we had pilots everywhere. I got 3 bedrooms. Everybody was everywhere. And we had a big time, putting my dad to rest. And it's just been a beautiful thing to have a life I never dreamed possible. Today, become a world traveler. I go to a lot of places. I go to a lot of conferences in Alcoholics Anonymous. I love AA. I was able to speak and tell my story a little bit last night on Zoom. I'm able to go to celebrations. I fell in love with Alcoholics Anonymous. They say don't leave before the miracle happens. I believe one of the miracles for me was falling in love with AA where I have a want to. The 12 and 12 talks about coming in because we have to, and then it becomes a want to. And now I really love, you can't keep me away from Alcoholics Anonymous. I love Alcoholics Anonymous. I look forward to the meetings. I look forward to the North Carolina State Convention coming up in July. If you can get registered for that, it's not far from y'all. It's going to be in Lake Junaosca or whatever you call it there in Waynesville, July the 20th. You want to go check that out. Anyway, I'm winding up now. I'm leaving enough time for some Q&A, but I mean, God has blessed me beyond my wildest. I mean, if I would have said, okay, 12 years ago, this is what I'd like to happen for me in Alcoholics Anonymous, I would have sold myself short. You know, I wasn't planning on getting married and then getting divorced in Alcoholics Anonymous. I didn't plan on that. It just happened. And then I've learned to accept life on life's terms. And a lot of times I say accept life on God's terms. It's God's terms. And, you know, I'm just excited and I'm grateful that. And if you're new, the ones that are in the treatment center, please don't leave before the miracle happens. I know y'all have heard these stories, but I'm telling you, I'm a witness that if I can do it, anybody can do it. You'll know a life you never dreamed possible. Thank you, Reed. Thank each and every one of you for coming. And that's all I got. Thank you.